Welcome back to Let's Talk Sports. I'm CJ Tully, and I have another tier list video for you guys. I'm going to be breaking down all of the rule changes since 2020 in the MLB. Let's talk about it. All right, so first let me break down what my tiers will be for this breakdown here. Starting off with love the change. These are going to be things that I think are for the better of baseball, changes that I think made the sport of baseball better. Next up, I'm not a fan, but they're good for the game. These are things that I don't personally like for the game of baseball, but I do recognize are better for baseball now that the changes have been made. Then I didn't need to be touched. These are rules that I don't think even needed to be implemented, but that baseball did, and they rearranged a few things, kind of like don't touch a thing that's not broken. And then finally, I've ruined baseball. I'm a very traditional baseball guy, so you'll come to see that there are some of these things that I think ruined the game of baseball. Let's start off here with the bigger bags. This is something that got implemented to I think it was mostly to prevent injuries. So they made bases a little bit bigger. In my opinion, this didn't need to be touched. I think it's kind of taken away the called stealing numbers. Now the players get to slide in there a lot more. I know it kind of damaged JT Realmuto, especially with being able to throw out runners. So I don't think this is something that needed to be changed. I know at first base even makes the bag a little bit bigger. You're not necessarily having as many collisions, but this is not something that I think needed to be changed in the game of baseball. Next up, we have the throwing over. You only get 3 throwovers now from the pitcher over to first base or second base for pickoff plays. This is something, I'm not a huge fan of, but I do think that it was a big change for baseball. It kind of needed to be done. This is somewhere that I think the time restriction was a good thing to be changed here. There are some other things that will be going on here that I think made the game shorter that I'm not a fan of. I think we can look at the throws over to first base as kind of a waste of time, and now you only have 3 throws over. The next one, he would get the automatic base if you don't get him out. So I think that's something that I can love for the change for baseball, just because that's one area where I will agree that they needed to speed the game up, and I don't think it takes away from the game by being able to do so. Next up, we have the pitchers or position players not being able to pitch until the 7th inning or down 8 runs. I don't think this needed to be implemented in all honesty. I don't think it makes the game much more competitive when you have a real pitcher in there. At that point, the game's over no matter what. So I don't think this is something that needed to be touched. Position player, if he comes in, yes, the game's over. But, if you're down enough runs anyway, I don't think this is something that's really going to be changing much going on there in baseball. Then you have the Shohei Ohtani rule. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not a huge fan of this rule whatsoever. It really is just a Shohei Ohtani rule. It's the rule where you can pitch and DH in the same game, be able to bat and pitch. And yes, this is technically for any player that wants to do so, but it's only going to implement Shohei Ohtani. I'm not a fan of it, but I can recognize that it's good for the game of baseball. Again, not a big fan of what Shohei Ohtani has with all of this and all the specialties that he gets with baseball, but I can recognize that it's better for baseball if you have him on the mound and he's able to hit. So this would be a great spot here for not a fan of it, but I do recognize that it is good for the game of baseball. Now to the pitch clock. And when this first came out, I absolutely hated this. I thought this was going to be something that ruined baseball. Again, I'm not a fan of it because I think it takes the suspense away from a lot of the pitches. I can recognize, though, that it does speed up the game of baseball, and that's what they were trying to do. It hasn't really been as glaring an issue as I thought it would be when it first did come out. Like I said, I'll self-admittedly say that this is something I absolutely hated. I thought it was going to ruin baseball. Not as bad as I would have originally thought. So I'll put it in here as not a fan just because it's not something I necessarily wanted to see. I do think, like I said, it takes away from the suspense of every pitch, kind of rushes things up, and then the automatic strike and ball if you're not paying attention. Not a huge fan of that part, but I do recognize if they're trying to speed up the game, this is an area they did so, and it's not necessarily damaging anything. Now I want to get into something here that I am truly not a fan of and I believe ruined baseball, and that's the runner starting at second base in extra innings. This is another area where they wanted to speed up the game of baseball, but with this, I feel like you took away a lot of what baseball is. Yes, you want to speed up the game. That's what a lot of these rules have come down to. You want to speed up the game of baseball. There's areas that it shouldn't be touched, though. One of my favorite things growing up watching baseball was the long, drawn-out games, the 14, 15, 16-inning games where you have position players pitching. You had Vince Velasquez playing the outfield at one point. You had Wilson Valdez pitching, Roman Quinn. I'm a Phillies fan, so those are the instances I recognize, but I think this ruined the sport of baseball in extra innings. I think you need those long, drawn-out games. They're fun to be at. They're fun to watch. Again, old traditional baseball guy. I think this was something that was great for baseball, those longer games. You now add the runner at second base. These games are going quicker. They're unearned runs. I am not a fan of the runner starting on second base. I feel like it took a lot away from what the long, drawn-out baseball games are. And just on a little side rant here, I think trying to speed up the game of baseball in and of itself just takes away from what the sport was. If you didn't like a long, drawn-out game, there's other sports for stuff like that. There's the basketballs. There's the hockeys. Baseball is a game you're going to be sitting at, and you're going to expect 3 or 4 hours long of baseball. So, in my opinion, you don't need to speed it up, and I think this was the worst way that baseball tried to speed things up. Going over to the shift, and now they have it where you can only have 2 players on each side of second base. I don't think it needed to be touched. In all honesty, I never understood everybody hating on the shift. If one team wants to put all players on one side of the field, feel free to do so and then bunt the other side of the field. I think there were ways around this. I don't think it was that damaging to baseball to have everybody on one side of the field. Again, as major league hitters, you should be able to hit opposite field. If everyone's going to be on one side, there's ways to get around it. So I don't believe that they ever needed to really implement a shift change. I get why they did it, but for me, it was never something that they really needed to implement here. Next up, we have the 3 batters for relief or for pitching. You cannot get out of a baseball game without pitching to 3 batters unless injury or stuff like that. I guess I don't love it whatsoever, but I guess it was good for the game of baseball because now you have less bullpen calls. But in my opinion, I kind of liked the methodical, thought-out part of everything of, okay, I'm going to put in a lefty here to face a lefty, and then we'll bring in a righty. And you kind of made more managerial decisions have to be implemented, so I kind of like that part of it. But I can, again, trying to speed it up. You take out that many mound visits. You add the mound visits as well. We can implement that into the same category here. But for me, I'm not a huge fan of it because, again, I think it takes away from what the manager has to do to be able to bring in the right guys and everything else. But I'll put it that it's good for the game just because, again, it's speeding things up, and that's what they wanted to see. Next up, I have the no batters or no pitchers batting anymore and how it's going to the DHs universally. This is something I went back and forth on. I talked to my brother about it, actually, and he brought up a good argument that the pitchers had a chance to really change this. If they wanted to participate in batting, they should have taken more time to be better at the plate. They should have taken more time to work on their hitting. So they kind of ruined it for themselves. And with that argument, I'll say I love it for the game. I did like the difference that it added having a pitcher up. And it was cool when like a Bartolo Colon, Clayton Kershaw, one of these guys would actually have some pop. So that part of it was fun. But I definitely think it's better to have more lively at-bats, I'll say, with having the pinch or the designated hitters in here. So give me the designated hitters is something I love the change of baseball because it gives more guys an opportunity at the plate. Finally, we have the newest one with the ABS system. This is something else I thought I was going to hate a lot more than I think I do right now. I'm not the biggest fan of it because, again, I think it takes that human element out of the game, and I do think this is the first step to them testing out. Maybe we just have no more umpires. So with that being said, I'm not a huge fan of it. It has been a little fun to watch, especially when you're at a game, everyone just going like this, like, oh, we need to challenge that. So that part of it can be fun, but I do think this is the first step to a bigger issue here with the MLB where they're going to be taking out umpires, and I like the human element of it. You're not going to have everything perfect. When you see some of these balls and they are grazing the outside corner, I mean, there's got to be a point where it's like, okay, we're going a little overboard with this. So I'll put it, I'm not a huge fan of it. Definitely I don't think it ruined baseball the way I thought it would, but I do think we're getting to that point, and that's where I'm going to preemptively put it here that it's good for the game now. It speeds it up. You're getting the right calls, whatever. But at the same time, I think it's going to lead to a bigger issue where you're taking umpires out of the game. So with that being said, I'll put it here. But that's everything for me. Those are the latest rule changes since 2020. I wanted to put them in a little bit of a tier list here. Let me know what you guys think. Again, I'm an old school baseball guy, so a lot of these just changed the things that I grew up loving about baseball. So I'm going to be a traditionalist about it, but let me know what you guys think. Again, follow me on social media at Let's Talk Sports on Instagram and TikTok. Feel free to subscribe here. I really appreciate all of the love and support on the channel. And always check out my website at letstalksports.com. Catch you guys next time.